In a quiet recording studio in 1956, a calm, steady voice began to speak words that would echo across generations. There were no flashing lights, no dramatic music, no cheering crowd, just a microphone, and a message that would change millions of lives. This was the voice of Earl Nightingale. At a time when most people believed success was a matter of luck, connections, or background, Nightingale introduced a radical idea, simple yet powerful enough to transform destinies. He said, "We become what we think about." Those 6 words would become the foundation of modern personal development. But this message was not born from comfort. It was born from struggle. Earl Nightingale lost his father at a young age. He grew up during the Great Depression, one of the hardest economic periods in American history. Poverty was not a concept to him. It was a daily reality. As a young boy, he watched people work tirelessly and still barely survive. He saw dreams crushed by circumstances. He saw talented individuals settle for ordinary lives. And he began to ask one powerful question: why do some people succeed while others fail? This question would define his life. As a teenager, he developed a deep love for reading. While other boys were distracted by entertainment, Nightingale was studying philosophy, psychology, and success principles. One book in particular changed his perspective forever: Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. From that moment, he realized something extraordinary. Success was not an accident. It was a result of thought. Years later, after serving in the United States Marine Corps during World War II, Nightingale returned home determined to understand the secret behind achievement. He studied the lives of successful people, business leaders, inventors, entrepreneurs, artists, and he discovered a pattern. Every single one of them had a clear goal. They knew what they wanted. Meanwhile, the majority of people drifted through life without direction. They worked, they earned, they survived, but they never truly decided what they were aiming for. In 1956, Nightingale decided to record his findings into a simple audio program. He called it The Strangest Secret. Why that title? Because the secret was hidden in plain sight. The strangest secret, he said, is that we become what we think about. If a person constantly thinks about failure, fear, and limitation, they move toward those outcomes. But if a person fixes their mind on a clear, worthwhile goal, their actions, decisions, and habits begin aligning with that vision. The mind becomes a magnet, and life begins to respond accordingly. This message spread like wildfire. Without social media, without internet, without viral marketing. The Strangest Secret became the first spoken word recording to sell over 1 million copies. It earned a gold record, something almost unheard of for a motivational message. But what made it so powerful? It wasn't hype. It wasn't empty positivity. It was responsibility. Nightingale did not promise overnight success. He did not offer shortcuts. Instead, he offered a mirror. He told listeners that their results were not controlled by luck, but by thought and direction. He explained that most people live reactively. They wake up, go to work, respond to problems, and repeat the cycle. Years pass, but nothing truly changes. Why? Because they never choose a destination. Imagine boarding a ship with no coordinates, no map, no final port. The ship may move, but it drifts wherever the waves decide. Now imagine setting a clear course. Even if storms come, the captain adjusts, but the destination remains the same. Nightingale believed that a goal transforms a person from a drifter into a captain. He often said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Notice the words carefully. Progressive, meaning ongoing growth. Realization, meaning bringing something into reality. Worthy ideal, meaning a goal that has meaning and value. Success was not about money alone. It was about becoming disciplined, becoming focused, becoming intentional. He challenged listeners to write down a clear goal, something they truly desired, and commit to thinking about it every day for 30 days. Not wishing, not hoping, but thinking, planning, acting. He believed the human mind is the most powerful tool ever created. But like fertile soil, it does not care what you plant. It will grow whatever seeds are given to it. Fear or faith, doubt or determination. That is why guarding your thoughts is not optional. It is essential. Nightingale's voice carried calm authority. He did not shout. He did not dramatize. He spoke with quiet certainty, as if he had seen the formula of life and was gently sharing it. And perhaps that was his greatest gift: clarity. In a noisy world filled with distractions, he simplified success to one core principle: you become what you think about most of the time. Today, decades later, his message still resonates. Modern self-help movements, motivational speakers, and business coaches echo very variations of the same truth. But long before the industry exploded, before seminars filled stadiums, before mindset became a trend, there was a man in a studio, a microphone, and a simple idea that awakened millions. The question now is not whether his message works. The question is, what are you thinking about? Because your future is quietly forming, shaped by the dominant thoughts you choose today. But Earl Nightingale did not stop at philosophy. He understood something most people overlook. Information alone does not change a life. Application does. In his speeches, he often explained that knowledge without action is like a library locked in darkness, powerful but useless. The difference between those who transform their lives and those who remain stuck is not intelligence, it is decision. Decision to think differently, decision to aim higher, decision to refuse drifting. He observed that society conditions people to follow the crowd. From childhood, we are taught to conform. Go to school, get a job, be realistic, don't dream too big. And slowly, without realizing it, many people trade their potential for comfort. Nightingale warned against this invisible trap. He said the opposite of courage is not fear, it is conformity. When you think like everyone else, you live like everyone else. And when you live like everyone else, you experience average results. He challenged his audience with a bold truth. If you want what the few have, you must be willing to do what the few do. The few, as he described, are individuals who think independently. They decide their destination before starting the journey. They refuse to let circumstances define their identity. He believed that environment influences us, but it does not imprison us. Your current situation may not be your fault, but your future situation is your responsibility. This idea was empowering and uncomfortable because it removed excuses. Nightingale often spoke about the power of habits. He explained that success is not a dramatic event. It is a daily routine. Small thoughts repeated consistently become beliefs. Beliefs influence actions. Actions create results. He compared the human mind to farmland. If a farmer plants corn, he does not worry about harvesting wheat. The seed determines the crop. Likewise, if a person plants thoughts of limitation, resentment, or fear, they harvest frustration. But if they plant thoughts of vision, growth, and discipline, they harvest progress. And here is what made his message even more powerful. He never denied difficulty. He acknowledged that life contains setbacks, economic hardship, rejection, failure, loss. But he insisted that these events do not define a person unless they allow them to. Circumstances are temporary. Mindset is decisive. During one of his most impactful discussions, he described the concept of drifting in greater detail. Drifting is living without a clear goal. Drifting is accepting what comes without questioning. Drifting is moving, but never advancing. He said most people drift because it is easy. It requires no risk, no bold decisions, no discomfort. But drifting guarantees mediocrity. The moment a person sets a definite chief aim, something specific and meaningful, their entire behavior changes. They wake up with direction. They filter opportunities differently. They say no to distractions more easily because now they have something to protect, a vision. Nightingale also emphasized the importance of self-image. You cannot outperform your own belief about yourself. If deep down you believe you are unworthy of success, you will sabotage opportunities. If you believe you are capable of growth, you will search for solutions. He encouraged listeners to guard their mental diet. Just as junk food weakens the body, negative information weakens ambition. He advised limiting exposure to constant negativity, news cycles, complaining peers, pessimistic environments. Instead, he suggested feeding the mind daily with inspiration, education, and purpose. In many ways, he was ahead of his time. Long before neuroscience confirmed the brain's adaptability, long before psychologists popularized growth mindset, Nightingale was teaching that repeated thought patterns rewire behavior. He understood that repetition builds identity. That is why he urged people to write their goals clearly, not vaguely, not someday, but specifically. A specific goal activates the subconscious mind. It begins searching for pathways, not miracles, pathways. And perhaps one of his most transformative ideas was this: you are where you are because of what has dominated your thinking. This statement was not meant to shame. It was meant to awaken, because if thought created the present, thought can create the future. He shared stories of ordinary individuals who changed their circumstances by first changing their focus. Salesmen who doubled their income. Employees who became entrepreneurs. Individuals who broke cycles of generational limitation. The pattern remained the same. Clear goal, consistent thought, persistent action, no magic, just mental discipline. And yet this discipline is rare. Why? Because thinking deliberately is harder than reacting emotionally. It is easier to complain than to plan, easier to blame than to build, easier to drift than to direct. Nightingale believed that success belongs to those who take ownership of their mental life, not occasionally, daily. He often described life as a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you expect obstacles to defeat you, they likely will. If you expect to find a way through, you search until you do. Expectation shapes perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes destiny. As his voice flowed through radios and record players across the world, something unusual happened. People began to believe they had control, not over everything, but over the most important thing, their thoughts. And when a human being realizes they control their dominant thoughts, they begin to understand something extraordinary. They are not victims of randomness. They are architects of direction. But Nightingale's philosophy also carried a warning. If you do not control your thinking, someone else will. Advertising, media, society, fear, all compete for your attention. Whatever dominates your mind dominates your life. And that is why clarity is power. He believed that the majority of people underestimate themselves, not because they lack ability, but because they lack sustained focus. Talent without direction dissipates. Effort without purpose exhausts. But focused thought aligned with meaningful action creates momentum, and momentum changes everything. As Earl Nightingale's voice continued to resonate through countless homes, one truth became undeniable. Life is not something that happens to you. Life is something you create, moment by moment, thought by thought. He often said that our minds are like gardens. Neglect them, and weeds grow. Cultivate them, and flowers bloom. But cultivation requires intentionality. Every day, every decision, every action either strengthens your direction or weakens it. Every distraction that goes unchecked is a small drift away from your goal. Every negative thought allowed to dominate is a seed of limitation planted. And yet, he did not speak in fear. He spoke in possibility. He reminded listeners that ordinary people achieve extraordinary results when they commit to clear thinking and consistent action. He encouraged them to measure progress, reflect on growth, and recalibrate when necessary. He emphasized that setbacks are temporary teachers, not permanent prisons. Perhaps his most powerful lesson was this: you have within you everything needed to achieve your goals. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not resources or luck, but the ability to focus thought consistently on a worthy ideal. Imagine the implications of this idea. Every action you take, every word you speak, every thought you entertain is either moving you toward your ideal or away from it. Nothing else matters more. And because of this principle, Nightingale's teachings extend beyond wealth or career. They touch character, they touch relationships, they touch personal fulfillment. Success, he taught, is not a destination. It is a journey of conscious creation. It is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. He challenged his listeners to live intentionally, to define their purpose, to control their attention, to create habits that support their vision. Even today, decades after his recordings first played, his wisdom remains a compass, a quiet voice reminding us that greatness is not reserved for the few. It is available to anyone willing to think, decide, and act with clarity. Earl Nightingale's message is simple, yet revolutionary. Focus your mind, define your goal, take consistent action, and the life you imagine can become the life you live. So the question for you now is the same one Nightingale posed to millions. What are you thinking about most of the time? Because that thought, repeated, nurtured, acted upon, will shape your future. And in that realization lies the most profound secret of all. You do not have to wait for luck, circumstances, or permission. Your destiny begins within your mind. Your life is waiting for your focus. The strangest secret is no longer just a recording. It is a call to awaken, a call to own your mind, a call to become what you dare to think about. And as his voice fades into history, the echo remains in the hearts of those who listen, reminding us that every great life begins with a single, deliberate thought. Earl Nightingale understood that ideas alone do not transform lives, stories do. And so, he filled his teachings with examples of ordinary people achieving extraordinary results. Take the story of a young salesman in a small town. He struggled month after month, barely meeting his quota. He had talent, but no direction. One day, he listened to Nightingale's recording. He wrote down a clear goal: to double his sales in 1 year. Every morning, he visualized himself achieving it. Every evening, he reflected on his progress. Slowly, strategies emerged. Opportunities appeared. By the end of the year, he had not only doubled his sales, but developed skills that set him apart permanently. Nightingale said that what separated this young man from others was not luck, not connections, not even raw skill. It was focus. A mind fixed on a clear, specific goal moves mountains. He often illustrated this principle with the metaphor of the carpenter. A carpenter swings his hammer with precision at a nail. Each swing, aligned perfectly, drives the nail into the wood. But if the hammer swings randomly, even the strongest effort accomplishes nothing. Human effort works the same way. Thoughts, actions, energy. They must be aligned toward a definite purpose. Nightingale also explored the role of fear, one of the greatest barriers to success. Fear, he explained, is a thought like any other. It grows when entertained. It shrinks when confronted. By consciously directing attention away from fear and toward purpose, individuals can retrain their minds to embrace opportunity instead of avoidance. He reminded listeners that most people overestimate what they can do in a short time and underestimate what they can achieve over a long time. Patience, consistency, and persistence are the invisible forces that compound effort into achievement. Another story he shared was of a factory worker who dreamed of becoming an engineer. Limited by circumstance, he spent nights studying blueprints and technical books, while others slept or wasted their time. Years of disciplined effort transformed him into a skilled engineer. The lesson was clear. Consistent thought and action, even in small amounts, create extraordinary outcomes over time. Nightingale's teachings extended beyond financial success. He emphasized character, integrity, and service. A goal worth pursuing, he said, must align with higher principles. Money without values, power without responsibility, or skill without purpose leads to emptiness. Success is not complete unless it elevates both the individual and those around them. He also highlighted the importance of self-image. If a person believes they are capable, they act with confidence and find solutions. If they believe they are incapable, they hesitate and miss opportunities. The mind's perception of self determines behavior, and behavior determines results. Change begins with belief, not external circumstances. Throughout his life, Nightingale remained committed to spreading these principles. Through his company, Nightingale Conant, he produced thousands of audio programs and courses, teaching millions the power of focused thoughts, goal setting, and self-discipline. His voice became a mentor to anyone willing to listen. Even in his final years, he continued to remind audiences that the greatest power is not external, it is internal. Every decision, every thought, every habit is a brick in the structure of life. Success is deliberate, not accidental. Fortune favors the prepared, the intentional, the persistent. In today's world, his message is more relevant than ever. In an age of distractions, fleeting trends, and constant noise, the principle remains simple. Your dominant thoughts shape your life. Guard them, guide them, and act upon them. Your destiny is not written by others. It is written by your own mind. Earl Nightingale left behind more than recordings. He left behind a blueprint for living consciously, thinking deliberately, and pursuing goals with unwavering focus. Millions have followed it. Millions will continue to follow it. And the core truth remains: we become what we think about. Every individual listening to his words today has the same opportunity he offered decades ago to choose their thoughts, define their purpose, and direct their energy toward a life of meaning, achievement, and fulfillment. The strangest secret is not a secret at all. It is a key, waiting to unlock the potential in every mind, willing to focus, persist, and act. And now, as we reach the final chapter of this journey, we return to the core of Earl Nightingale's message, not as listeners, but as participants. Because his philosophy was never meant to be admired. It was meant to be applied. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of your own future. Two paths lie ahead. The first path is familiar, comfortable, predictable. It requires no bold decisions, no deep reflection.